This lazy guy may seem weak, but he was actually incredibly talented and powerful. He can easily kill a cursed dragon and a huge golem with a simple kick. He can even stop a powerful strike with just 2 fingers, and even facing the Demon King made him bored. Just look at his face after he crushes through the mountains after receiving a powerful attack from the Demon King. He even wants to sleep during this time. But before I spoiled the fun, let's start the story. A man named Hermes was calmly taking a nap when his sister arrived. The girl asks him if he did something because Mimi's, who seems to be a butler, was looking for him. Hermes told her that an annoying task was handed to him, that's why he ran away. His sister exclaimed that he is the head of the Kano family, so he needs to take his responsibilities seriously. Originally, as the 4th son of the Kano family, there was no way he should have become the head. But a meteor happened to fall on a party where all 3 of his older brothers were present. Sadly, all of them died. Anyway, he just wanted a quite lazy life, so he told his sister to have at least a day off. His sister smirks since there is nothing special for that day. It's not his birthday or some kind of anniversary. His sister was thinking what's special, so he interrupted her and said that today is the spring solstice. His sister seems confused, so he explains that it's like summer or winter solstice. It's the day in the year when the temperature and humidity feel the most like spring. His sister didn't believe since there's no such thing. She was angry when she realized that he was always making a joke when he told her that he made that spring solstice. But he insists that it's really the most spring-like day of the year. He crossed his arms and asked her to let him have a peaceful afternoon. The girl couldn't take it anymore and scolded Hermes to start taking his responsibilities seriously. Hermes agreed, but he will do it tomorrow. The girl let out a sigh and decided to tell Mimi's where he was. The girl leaves him, so Hermes snaps his finger before Mimi's could find him. Later on, Mimi's arrived but was bewildered because Lady Sola said that Hermes was definitely there, but couldn't find him. He put his hand on the back of the chair and failed to notice that Hermes was actually there, invisible. He saw Hermes' drinks that had been left untouched, yet he was nowhere to be found, so he decided to leave the place. After Mimi's left, Hermes snapped his finger and became visible. Now he can enjoy his solstice peace and swears that he will never show his true power. The next day, Hermes was rushing towards Mimi's. He came to a full halt and asked the butler for money, but the old man cut him off, mentioning the matter from yesterday. But Hermes excitedly told him to forget about it and ask for gold coins. He will use the money to buy a limited edition photo book of Orutia, a sage said to be the most beautiful woman in all of history that was born once in 10,000 years. He also added that it's the first run edition with serial number 0 and has her autograph. The old man inquired if he was demanding money for a personal hobby again. Hermes insists that it's not a hobby because Orutia is life for him. Mimi's gave up and gave him what he needed. He advises Hermes not to forget about yesterday's matter, but Hermes ignores him and quickly leaves. After that, Hermes finally bought the photo book. He notices that he almost got fingerprints on it, so he chants his magic and uses his magic gloves. Then he starts to open the book to see what's inside, but Sola suddenly comes. He told her to stop as he was at a really good part. Sola saw the reason why he was preoccupied and still hadn't taken care of yesterday's issue. In frustration for her older brother, she instantly snatched the photo book and threw him other papers instead. She threatened him that she won't return it until he takes care of the issue. Hermes was frustrated since it looks like homework. He realized that if he didn't do this homework, his photo book would be thrown in the trash, so he decided to obey and ask if all he needed to do was solve the issue. Sola agrees, and the first thing he needs to do is to identify the enemy and discuss it with Mimi so that they can prepare troops. Sola was not yet finished when Hermes suddenly bolted out. He was ready to do anything just to have that photo book again. A few days later, Mimi's discussed that the disappearance of the cursed dragon had been confirmed. The purification of the land polluted by the curse has also been confirmed, but it seems like our lazy guy looks gloomy. Mimi's continued that it was defeated just 2 days ago after its appearance, and the damage was kept to a minimum. Therefore, several nearby towns have proposed presenting a 10,000-person fan for him in gratitude. Each and everyone expresses the heartfelt thanks of the citizens. Hermes was sweating upon hearing those. He asked what they let him do. If it was such a strong monster, they should have let him know. He took it down by himself, and I think he was panicking because his lazy life will be ruined now that they know how strong he was. Mimi's clarified that their original plan was to assign him an escort, but didn't expect Hermes to go alone. It was written in the report, after all. He also told him that a king was very pleased and said he wishes to commend him. Hermes asked the old man to cancel it, but it was impossible. In his mind, his fame looks like it has gone up again. Even without showing his true powers, he is the strongest. He wants to stop that power and ignore his will and turn his house into a kingdom someday. It was him, the story of a noble who doesn't want to rise in status. Sola asks a maid if she saw his brother. The maid told her that Hermes in his study. Hermes seemed to hear Sola's tone and assumed that she might trouble him again since he had known his sister for 10 years. So before Sola could find him, he needed to run away. As soon as Sola opens the door and calls him brother father, Hermes uses his magic and bolts out of the window. Calling him brother father by his sister is literally the most annoying scenario for Hermes. His sister schemes to make him the head of their family, and on paper, she's officially his daughter. Luckily, he senses her. He went to the city when an old man called him and asked him to try their new product. He politely declined the old man since he already got more on his hand, but the old man insisted since his right hand is free. While wandering around, he observed that the city was lively. He was surprised when a lady suddenly hugged him from behind. She was Orutia, but she was not the one in the photo book. For the past 100 years, the name Orutia has been most common in the world of courtesans. Different girl named after the legendary great sage and unrivaled beauty. It's incredibly common for those in beauty-related professions to take the name, and that girl is no exception. She's one of the many courtesan Orutias out there, though she's one his closest to. However, Orutia asked him if he had free time. She's not as bad as his sister, but every now and then she drags him into trouble. Though he declined, Orutia insisted since their shop's totally empty, so he will be her guest. Of all the things Orutia could ask for, that is by far the easier and least troublesome. Orutia is still pursuing him and even shows a part of her melons at him, but Hermes looked not interested, but he turned around and went to the shop. Orutia was frustrated because he always ignored her flirting. In the shop, Hermes was calmly lying on Orutia's lap and gently massaging his hair. Then Orutia shows him the menu to do something nice, but he turns her down, because being lazy is good stuff for him. Orutia didn't stop and said that she had a once-in-a-lifetime favor to ask. She wants Hermes to help boost their shop's sales. He was confused since he was already helping their sales. But it's not what Orutia is talking about. Hermes' eyes suddenly spark when she mentions that they got some really good sake. His jaw dropped when Orutia told him that it's from Dunamis, but his interest faded when she added that the sake was 37 years old because it's from the worst year. The year when a typhoon and an earthquake hit back to back and most of the barrels got soaked. His eyes sparkled again when Orutia said that it's from one of the barrels that didn't get soaked. It's super rare, so it'll cost him a pretty penny. That's why he ordered her to bring it out right away. So Orutia kissed him and immediately went outside to get the sake. However, Hermes couldn't help but drool. In his mind, there probably isn't much sake left in the world. A legendary vintage in perfect condition despite its tragic history. He stood at the window and seemed to be looking for something. When he saw it, he immediately bolted out of the window. When he lands on the ground, he sniffs to follow the smell that leads to a path. But then, a huge monster is blocking his way. He kicked the monster and ordered it to back off. Then he saw what he was looking for. He grabs some few fruits and ignores the monster on his back. His brow furrowed when the monster stepped on the tree that made it break. He didn't hesitate and immediately struck the monster. He seems not to have struggled with the monster, as he didn't drip a single sweat. He was thankful that the other fruits were safe. The fruit that he picked from the forest was savma plums that go perfectly with the dunamis. That is the best way to enjoy it. They start to drink until many people come by and join them. Morning came, and when he woke up, he wondered how he even got home last night because he had drunk too much. When Sola arrives, he assumes that it was trouble again, so he apologizes as he doesn't have time for any trouble. He made a quick look at his sister in surprise when she seemed happy, claiming that he already took care of something. She was talking about the Odamla, the one that showed up in Lazarus Forest. The locals were in trouble and came directly to petition them about it. Hermes remembers when he went to that same forest when he got some plums yesterday, which means the monster he smacked down back then is the same monster that she was talking about. He immediately denied it. But Sola didn't believe him because she already went out and asked people around. Some of them said that they'd seen him before and even testified. Sola was happy because, as expected of her brother father, he took down the monster all by himself. It looks like Hermes couldn't deny it anymore, so he made an excuse to use the bathroom. Being blind by the thrill of that ultra-rare sake, he ended up accidentally slaying a monster without even realizing it. Hermes was calmly reading a book when Sola arrived. Before he could hide the book, Sola already snatched it. Sola furrowed her brow when she realized that it's an arranged partner photo book. At first, she thought her brother was looking for a partner, but the photo book was actually for her. Those are matchmaking photos. It's been a while since they had one of those. The Kano family did get promoted to Count status. That's probably why all the political marriages are pouring again. Sola understood, so she asked if there's anyone promising. But there's none according to his brother since no one stands out. They're all political alliances through marriage. That's what makes them normal. She was curious about what her brother-father would do. Originally, she was just Hermes' older sister. But since she'd inherit the family instead of him, she filed with the case to become his adopted daughter, and Hermes became the head of the house. Since then, whenever it's about the household, she always asks for his help and calls him brother-father. Hermes decided to reject them all since there's no way he will hand her over to that level of guys. Sola laughed and assumed that he was really thinking about it seriously. Hermes explained that she's the only daughter of the Kano house and practically a princess, Sola seems satisfied. She winks at him and asks to protect her until she gets married. Hermes agreed, but the next day people freaked out when they found out Sola had been kidnapped. Hermes suddenly gets up off the chair and asks who did it. He couldn't believe it when Mimi said that the kidnapper was the Demon King. Demon King Kaori was actually a distant relative of the Kano family. 400 years ago, the previous Demon King and the first head of the Kano family were with the same man. Both bore children. The Kano family continued as humans through the generations. But as a long-lived race, the Demon King's child Kaori still lives and reigns to this day. So for Hermes of the Kano house, she's roughly his great-great-great-great-aunt. Holding a crystal ball, Mimi's informs him that there's a letter from that Demon King, so he immediately smashed it. Then Kaori suddenly appears and introduces herself. She heard the whole story and asked if Sola is the princess of the Kano family. Hermes agreed since Sola was the only daughter. Kaori revealed that her father always said that the Demon King always kidnaps princesses. It is the reason why she took Sola and told Hermes to come to the Demon King's castle if he wants to save his sister. It's a traditional method that Demon Kings use to contact humans. Also, the Demon King only contacts one-sidedly, so she won't accept questions. Then she waved goodbye and vanished. Later on, Hermes went to the castle. Sola kept calling his name to save her, but it seems he didn't believe her. Out of the blue, he asks her if rock or paper. Sola immediately responds with scissors and even shows her hands. In the end, Hermes realized that she was not really kidnapped and was not being tied. Then Kaori appears and threatens him to come, or else his sister will suffer something awful. He asked what exactly would happen just for reference, because according to his father, princesses that were kidnapped by demon kings are traditionally brutally humiliated. It's the opposite of what happened to Sola. He was irritated because their ancestors taught such nonsense. Upon hearing it, Kaori commanded him to stop chatting. If he really wants to save Sola, he must defeat her gloriously. Hermes agreed, but he analyzed the surroundings. He makes sure that no one will see whatever they do. Kaori quickly charges and attacks him. That's when he realized that they're going full force. Kaori rushed towards him and gave him a kick. As a result of such force, Hermes was being thrown and penetrated the huge mountain. Yet, it seems that attack didn't scratch him. He even asked if she just called him a prince a second ago, because if she does, at least she needs to be consistent. He snapped his finger and created a huge power to counterattack. Unfortunately, Kaori deflected it, but he was not yet finished. Kaori failed to notice that he was already behind her and gave her a hard kick that made her crash to the ground. Hermes was confused because Kaori seemed to be enjoying their fight while extremely exhausted. They continued to attack each other until 30 minutes had quickly passed. Kaori was catching her breath and admitted that he conquered her well, but no matter where Hermes looked, Kaori was completely unharmed. He even found it absurd when Kaori stated that as long as there is light, she will rise again. She will be reborn again and again, but by then, he'll be old and gone. But for Hermes, she was doing it for show, and even put in too much effort into that performance. Then the castle is starting to break apart piece by piece. That's why Sola calls for him. He immediately bolted towards her to catch. Sola was happy because he still protected him, even if that's a pointless battle just for a show. Because for her, girls are happy when treated like a princess. They both stared at the fallen castle. Sola was satisfied because even Hermes' aftercare is perfect. She remembers what her father used to say, to leave it better than you found it. Hermes wasn't happy to hear it because he found their ancestors really annoying. Hence, he seems happy that whatever he did in that place won't be noticed by anyone. But he was wrong because later on, he found out that Kaori publicly announced that he defeated her. His fame just kept rising, and that really took the wind out of him. Meanwhile, he was watching Medea swing her sword. When he called her name, the girl was happy to see her master watching her. Medea is one of the granddaughters of the sword Saint Perseus, and she was Hermes' disciple. The girl asks about her swordsmanship. According to Hermes, she improves quite a bit and her leagues are better than they first met. Medea had teary eyes because she did it. All her hard work and 9 hours of sleep has finally paid off. Hermes notices a sword leaning on a tree. He took it and ordered Medea to use her technique on him. Medea was confused and having a second thought, but Hermes encouraged her to come at him for real because he wanted to see her improvement. Medea agreed and immediately bolted at Hermes to strike. He was happy since Medea got more behind that swing than he thought. Then he catches her sword with just his 2 fingers, though it created a massive impact that destroyed the surroundings behind him. Medea's eyes were sparkling, already expecting his master to stop her attack so easily. Because of this, she began to analyze her movements, deciding whether to swing her sword more lightly or simply review the forms again. Hermes smiles because he really finds Medea admirable and hardworking. She's worth teaching, so he plans to get more serious. So he made her under his magic. That's why Medea couldn't move, because he was holding her. He lifts his right hand, and so does Medea. His every move was being copied by her. It's a simple spell that makes the target's body copy his movements, but Hermes seems annoyed because instead of asking why they are doing that, Medea just praises him, so he yelled at her that he was teaching her new techniques. But like always, Medea needed to shut her mouth to anyone that he was her master. Medea agreed and states that her master is Nanasu and a disciple of Nanasu school. After that, he began to teach Medea, and the latter seems seriously following him. After a while, Hermes was happy because her movements are already perfect. All that's left is to practice diligently. Medea saluted her master and was grateful. But to their shock, 3 maids suddenly showed up with placards on their hands. Then they realized several trees were being cut because of their practice. Medea wondered if her master would be all right, but the master was certain they wouldn't assume it was from training. For them, it'll just look like they were practicing a party trick, the usual spinning around. They were right because some girls were asking if they were practicing for some kind of performance on their placard. Hermes was taken aback when the butler suddenly popped out of nowhere. He even has his own placard that says, "That's not it." Hermes remembers an anecdote about when the first head taught swordsmanship to His Majesty the King where it said he used a similar set of movements. They say he tied their hands together with a rope so their movements would synchronize and force the king's body to learn the sword forms. But one of the fans noticed that they weren't tied together with a rope and assumed that he uses magic. As a result, they start giggling and chatting. Medea was worried that her master's identity would be revealed. Yet, she's still happy to see him being praised. She doesn't know what to do with those fans, so she turns to her master. It seems Hermes unintentionally gained more fame. He cursed the butler with his meddlesome anecdote. The next day, he went to Orutia's shop. There he found that lately the number of girls being kidnapped has been increasing. Orutia, who seems worried, asks for him to look at it. That's why he immediately ordered an investigation about it. According to the old man, there have been numerous disappearances within his territory, but none has been solved. It seems likely that all the cases were committed by the same culprit. In all the recently increased incidents, the targets have constantly been young women. Their ages ranged from 12 to 25, and all of them appeared to be unmarried. Hermes realized that if their age was in that range, it makes sense that someone like Orutia, a brothel madam, would take notice. Mimi's also added that money has been delivered to the homes of the kidnapped girls, roughly 10 gold coins. Hermes was shocked because that amount would need 10 years of hard labor to earn. If money is changing hands, Mimi's assume that it's not kidnapping, but human trafficking. Hermes called him an idiot because that's way too much money for a girl's black market price. Besides, those kinds of people wouldn't go out of their way to deliver money to the victim's family. His gut's telling him this case is connected to something big underground, when something is linked to a huge criminal network, and if they solve it, their fame will skyrocket. Since he hates fame, he felt sorry for Orutia and pretended their conversation never happened. Then a flash of light suddenly appeared. It's a signal. The protective spell he places to safeguard his sister has been activated. He left Mimi's and bolted out of the house to find his sister. He reached the town and saw a carriage. It seems he senses that his sister was inside it, so he pulls out his sword and throws it at the front of the carriage to halt them. Then he walks towards his sword and pulls it from the ground. He destroyed half of the carriage in a swing, leaving the poor horse terrified. He commanded the driver to leave the person inside, claiming she was his sister. But the driver refused and said that his action was considered treason against the kingdom. Hermes furrowed his brow in confusion. The person who's standing before him is the current queen of the Karamba kingdom, Her Majesty Erika Rika Karamba. What a name. I want to dance cha-cha after hearing it. Anyway, the kingdom of Karamba is one of the 5 great powers of the continent. Among the 5, it's said to be the most powerful nation. So powerful that it's said to be capable of taking on 4 other nations alone if it wanted to. Though that assumes the demon king of Kamatoria doesn't get involved. Erika calls the carriage driver, Eleni, to do something. Eleni seemed to understand her, so she pulled out her blade and was about to attack. But Hermes cast a spell and easily threw her dagger with a swing of his hand. Hermes was surprised when her hood was taken off and realized that she was just a little girl. He assumes that she must be the queen's personal maid and about a head shorter than Erika. The queen was angry, demanding Eleni to help her escape. Yet Eleni didn't want to and had teary eyes. She told her Hermes was strong, but the queen ordered her to cast that spell. Eleni was hesitant as she clenched her fist. Yet she still followed the order and bolted at Hermes and quickly hugged him. Hermes was stunned when he sensed that magical energy emerging on her body. She was going to do self-destruction. He advised her not to do something reckless. He touches her back and realized that she was doing 2 spells at once. The white one is teleportation. Her plan was to kill the enemy and teleport Erika to safety. This is a problem, as self-destruction is intertwined with it. If he tries to disable either forcibly, it's like ripping off a scab. Instantly an explosion may occur. There's no way to undo the spell from the outside, so he lifted the little girl and apologized in advance. Then he kissed her for about 3 seconds, and it was done. Erica seems confused to see that nothing happened. It's because Hermes dissolved both spells from inside, peeling them off and melting them down. Erica couldn't believe that he could actually do it. Hermes stated that it wasn't just Eleni's magical energy because Erica planted it. When she admitted it, Hermes burst into anger because she knew what would happen. In response, Erica said that it was just part of being prepared for emergencies, and Elena was just a tool for her. Then she saw Eleni, who's calming down on the ground. Hermes asks her if she realizes what she did since Eleni was her maid and grew up together since they were babies. She asked if he knew her, then boasted that she was the queen of Karamba. Hence, Hermes was not interested in her status because it's about being human. He angrily said that she's still denying it, so he carried her like a baby in his left arm and gave her a slap on the butt. Erica was furious, but Hermes was not bothered. He even advised her to learn her lesson, not to even throw away someone close to her like that again. If she does, he will spank her again. When Erica told him that she was a queen, yet he spanked her just like that, Hermes insists that it doesn't matter because he will spank her as many times as it takes. Erica calms down and shyly asks for his name. After learning his name, she whispered and called him darling, but Hermes didn't hear it and asked her to say it again. Erica called him darling again and thanked for seriously scolding her. That was her first, but it made her happy. Hermes was shocked when out of nowhere his sister appeared and explained that because he scolded Erica for real, she's now totally into him. He was wondering how it is even allowed. As they walked through the town, people couldn't believe they saw the brother and sister walking together and wondered about the identity of Erica, who was also walking with them. As Hermes concluded that this could create a scene, Erica suggested that she should make them disappear. Hermes widened his eyes and didn't allow her and exclaimed that they would just change location, so he used his magic and suddenly a light emerged on them. In an instant, people were astonished when they left the crowd. Erica was bewildered for where they were, so Hermes responded that they were at his estate. Erica repeated his words and added a darling again, which made Hermes irritated, so he made it clear to her that he's Hermes Kano, who's nothing more than a humble man. Erica giggles and assumes that it must be really fate. After that, a maid arrived and told Hermes that he had a visitor earlier, but since he wasn't home, they said they would return. Hermes told his maid that if the visitor came back, the report could wait. He also added to take his sister and leave him with Erica. When they were alone, he demanded an explanation why Erica was running around playing kidnapper. Eleni interrupted and accused Hermes for being rude, but Erica winkled at her and said that it's fine. She said that for generations the queens of Karamba have created a garden of roses, but it's not some random garden. It was started by the great restorer of Karamba, Lady Rika Karamba. She gathered the most beautiful women from around the world to create a harem. And the Garden of Roses is the act of presenting that entire harem to a man of her choosing. Erica bet that he didn't hear the story of the tale of the master of the Garden of Roses. It sounded vaguely familiar, but Hermes wasn't sure. He was stunned when Erica added that it was his ancestors, the demon sword wielder. Their ancestors were one and the same. That's why Erica knew it the instant she heard that name, Kano. That is the reason why Erica created a harem of her very own. By seeking out and gathering the finest woman in the land, she provides their families with generous compensation, of course. She reminds Hermes that he has no idea how hard it is to find truly exceptional women. Yet Hermes seemed not interested in her business and set it aside. He seriously told Erica not to treat her vassals like they're disposable. Erica seems bewildered, yet she apologizes to Eleni. That's why the latter dropped her jaw, because the queen literally apologized to her. Erica also promises that she will never do such a thing again. Hermes also added not to call him darling, but Erica refused, so they started an argument. While doing so, Kaori arrived out of nowhere and immediately struck Hermes to play again. She was the visitor that the maid was talking about earlier. Then Kaori notices Eleni and Erica. Erica recalled that by order of the previous demon lord, he is forbidden from laying a hand on any human who is not equal. To think Hermes was on equal footing with the demon lord, she blushed, realizing he's even more incredible than she imagined. Somehow Kaori felt like she had just gotten in way deeper. Hermes was growing increasingly irritated as the two discussed various matters in their kingdom. They were Eleni and Erica. He shouted at them, asking why they were there again. Erica asks him back the meaning of his why when she was his sweet queen. Hermes looks frustrated at the girl and asks if she seriously thinks it's okay for her to be hanging around his mansion. She was the queen of Karamba, so she must work seriously. But he was stunned when Erica suddenly ran towards him and clung to him. She assumes that he likes women who take their work seriously. Hermes was sweating and reluctantly admitted it. He was also surprised that she made all these decisions so quickly and confidently. Erica looks confused because it's the rulers who usually discuss those things with their advisors and ministers first. But Hermes didn't need any of that and said that if the king and queen are competent, it's way more efficient for them to make all the decisions alone. Hermes was amazed at her. No question that she's the queen of a powerhouse nation. That's why Erika was blushing. Paying students a salary? That's one of the biggest reasons Karamba is such a powerful country. In most countries, children are treated as labor, so they rarely get the chance to be educated. But in Karamba, students actually receive a salary just for going to school. That lets the parent feel secure, having kids, sending them to school and nurturing their talents. That whole positive cycle directly strengthens the nation. And the one keeping it all running smoothly is Erika. That's why he was amazed by her talent. Though he is amazed, it doesn't mean that he will let her slide by hanging around in his mansion. Erika teased him and asked why not. Hermes was annoyed and shouted at her that she was in Aegina. In response, Erika reasons that the demon lord from Kamatoria frequently appears at his place. Hermes reasons that Kaori is a demon lord aside from being his aunt. He can't stop her even if he tries. Eleni interrupted and said that if people found out Erika was in another country, it'd be a huge diplomatic mess. Erika told them not to worry because she was in disguise. It's a method invented by their ancestors that is super hard to detect. Hermes didn't believe and asked how exactly she was disguising herself. The two were taken aback by his question, so Erika asked him how she looked to him. Hermes simply says that she's wearing the same super fancy white clothes dress she wore the last time. Hermes was surprised when Erika suddenly rushed towards him with joy, claiming that her disguise didn't work on him. Well, it was because he didn't wear the ring that was supposed to suppress his power. Erika had that disguise cast by a royal mage with Kalamba tier magic. That disguise can't be seen through unless one's magic level is higher than the caster's, which means Hermes' magic is higher than Erika. The latter quickly made a decision. She ordered Eleni to start disbanding the Garden of Roses immediately. She also added that once the Garden of Roses disbanded, she must make sure that every girl gets a decent sum of money and sends them back home. Eleni was confused and asked if she was so sure after gathering them with such effort. Erika reasons her version of the garden is full of girls picked to suit her taste, so she decided they were wiping the slate clean and gathering girls that match Hermes' preference. She winked at Eleni, and the latter seemed to understand her point. Hermes wanted to argue, but Erika made an evil smile because she was going to find girls that are exactly his type. Hermes was speechless because everything just turned into a huge headache. Morning came. Hermes wakes up feeling thirsty after drinking too much. He recalled that he had a quest to handle today, the Slime Lord Subjugation. A Slime Lord has appeared right on the border of the Kano territory. He noticed a bottle of water on his side table. He didn't know if it came from Sola or Mimi's, but whoever brought it, he's a lifesaver. He immediately drank it and didn't notice that there was a letter beside it. Then he suddenly burst it when out of nowhere a princess suddenly came into his room. Later on, they ride in a carriage. He had a long face, not because he didn't get enough sleep, but the princess was tagging along. She's Princess Rina, claiming that he was her master. Hermes corrected her that he was just her instructor. Rina is the princess of the Aegina kingdom where his family territory is, and the king's daughter. Rina is a skilled and a decent person, but getting a compliment from her is basically the same as getting from the king himself. Back then, he accidentally defeated her father, the king. After that, they both became his disciples in the so-called Nasos school. Anyway, Rina stated regarding the quest that she was grateful that he accepted it. A battle against a foe as mighty as the Demon King is still far beyond her grasp, but she reasoned there is still much to learn from a fight with a slime lord. Hermes thought it was just another ploy to boost his reputation, so he asked her if that's the real reason. Rina confirmed it and said that it bothers her to see him so down after his little accidents. As someone who knows what he is truly capable of, she hates seeing it, especially as his friend. She knew he defeated one before, so she figured a slime lord would be no trouble. That's why she made a request. And that is the same reason why Hermes accepted the job. Later on, the carriage stops at a place, and Hermes seems bored since their carriage was too slow. Rina apologized and made an indirect remark that he was with her. Anyway, he saw several slimes with their king. He told her he will start and Rina will observe. Hermes needs to make sure he doesn't earn any more of Rina's respect. He'll end it with just the right touch. He needs to keep it low-key and use minimal power. A horde with that size should only take 10% of his magic, and it has to be a single strike that wipes them all out. He used his shockwave and charged it in his hand, firing towards the monster. As a result, a massive explosion can be seen, wiping all the slimes. Yet, he was shocked when Rina exclaimed, asking what he did. He asks himself if he loses control of his power, but that can't be. He was wondering what could be the reason. Then he remembered the bottle that he drank earlier. There's a letter from Kaori that says it's a secret potion that doubles his magic power. If he drinks it, they shall have a passionate battle. That's it. It's because of the drink. But Rina thought he got even stronger. So she starts to praise him and blabber things that he doesn't want to hear just to boost his reputation. Kaori and Hermes were walking under the cherry blossoms. The Demon King excitedly shouted that it was hanami, a tradition of enjoying cherry blossoms with food and drinks, usually an outdoor picnic. However, Hermes doesn't seem interested. Kaori explained that it is a tradition from her father's homeland. He even brought one cherry blossom back then, and planted them all across the continent. Hermes guessed that she's telling him that her father was the origin of hanami. Putting that aside, they don't have any food or drinks. Kaori told him that the servants will bring everything later and just brought her share. Then she excitedly showed him a skull. Her father once said that the Demon King of Dairakuten used to drink honey from his enemy's skull for fun. Hermes seems to want to have an argument regarding the skull, so Kaori stops him because they were there just for hanami and no fighting allowed. She also added that her father said they mustn't start arguments over picnic spots, and they have to take their trash all the way back with them. Hermes realized that Kaori just really wanted to enjoy hanami, so he stopped. Kaori told him that she almost forgot. Her father always made sure to gather human flowers too when he did hanami. For her dear nephew, she brought some flowers just for him. When the ladies walked towards them, Hermes couldn't help but drop his jaw, because there was Northern Orutia, a stunning beauty with fair skin and sharp eyes, totally iconic. The second one is the third-gen Orutia. It's rare to see 3 generations all using the name Orutia. The third one with a plain-looking girl, that's the Orutia of madness and pleasure. She may look modest by day, but once she's in bed, who would have thought what could happen? Hermes turned to Kaori and asked if she was the one who called those 3. Kaori knew how he loved Orutia, that's why she brought them. In return, Hermes promised to do anything from that day on, and he'll be her servant number 1025. He asks if it's okay if she flirted with them. When Kaori agreed, Hermes instantly left her and went to the 3. Meeting the 3 Orutia, he can now die happy. They start to chat, and one of them asks him to show them how good he was with a sword. Hermes decides to start with a sword dance and make his move. As it ended, those women started to surround and praise him. For them, he is so beautiful, even though he's a man. While having a good time with the girls, Kaori was delighted and enjoying her own company. As long as her nephew was having fun, that's all that matters. Besides, that's exactly how hanami should be, to enjoy. A few days later, a photo book was being released where the cover photo was the hottest trends among Orutia's latest pose. Medea went to Hermes demanding an explanation for taking so many disciples. But when she was inside the room, reality hit her because Hermes was with Rina and her father King. And she was just the 3rd student of Nasos school. However, Sola was reading the photo book that stated the trend that's all the rage among the Orutias right now. Behind it lies the presence of a mysterious mentor. Sola burst into laughter because her brother father was now a celebrity. Hermes let his body lay on the bed. He blamed himself for drinking too much and got carried away. A boy was running and huffing for air in the town of Binsu until he reached the dead end. He froze when the person behind him told him that there was nowhere left to run. He shouts out loud and covers the book in his head, shaking in terror. It turned out it was only his friend and they were just playing. As they continue to wander, the girl comments that playing tag isn't even fun with him and he screams like a girl too when being caught. The boy turned to her and told that she's not wearing her mask. He also added that he was scared of playing tag and just wanted to read his books. The girl told him that reading books wouldn't make him stronger. Since he is a boy, he should train his sword skills and magic. He will get strong like their lord. They continue chatting. They didn't realize that the surrounding and the sky suddenly became dark. When they did, the girl was frightened. People started to scream and told everyone to run because of the meteorite that's coming their way. But the girl in shock couldn't move her feet. Her legs were shaking. She feels sick. That's why the boy holds her hand and comforts her. Luckily, Hermes arrived at the scene to save them. He immediately unsheathed his sword and hit the meteor to many pieces. He then fired magic at the falling small pieces of meteor, and when it was done, he immediately left the place. The 2 kids were amazed by Hermes. The boy seems inspired and decides to train so he can become like him. The girl disagreed because for her, he was fine just the way he was. At home, our lazy boy wears his normal expression because Sola told him that no matter how much he hides his abilities, she can't ignore him. And that's exactly what makes him a true lord. He was destined to shine in front of others and totally help them out. Sola continued to blabber, but Hermes fell into deep thoughts about the event earlier. The sudden appearance of a meteorite out of nowhere. If it's somehow connected to the other meteorite incidents, he needs to find out what causes it. But for now, peace is what matters most. Protecting everyday life is also his duty as the Lord. Hermes went to the capital royal, the kingdom of Redum Igina. He immediately knelt before the king and said that he was reporting as summoned. The king ordered him to raise his head and called him sensei, because there's no need for such formalities. Hermes refuses because it's his duty. The king laughs because he'll start bowing to him like a disciple. The royal guards around them were shocked when they found out that Hermes is the royal swordsmanship instructor. Hermes didn't get up from kneeling and asked for the reason for being summoned. The king explained that he wanted to return something that belongs to him. Then guards show 3 swords that belonged to his ancestor and were left behind. Since then, every royal instructor must carry one of them as proof and considered part of the formal attire. Then the king asked him to choose between the 3 swords. Hermes stood up and followed the king, but as soon as he saw the swords, he knew that the king was testing him, probably setting those up so if he chose the strongest sword, he could flatter him. He asked permission to touch those swords and realized that it was indeed a trap. The right sword is pretty plain and kinda shabby, nothing worth mentioning. The middle sword seems suspicious and basically the legendary sword. Its blade is wreathed in dragon fire. The left sword has a decent power. It is enchanted with magic that comes with a guard. Obviously, the king was trying to push him to pick the flashy one in the middle, and it was obviously insulting. Even a kid with no clue would think, so he chose the right sword, the plain one. He thought the king would be disappointed, but to his surprise, the king was pleased and said that he didn't realize how amazing he was. Because between those 3 swords, his ancestors used them at different points of life. In his youth, in middle age, and the plane that he chose was in his ancestors' old age. Meaning, in his twilight years, he is already the strongest and no longer needs a legendary sword. Since he chose the ordinary sword rather than the legendary one, it means that the saying was indeed true. The king had already expected it from his teacher. Even the royal guard seemed to be cheering for him, but Hermes didn't like it because he already had a bad feeling about it. With that said, the royal guards start to toss him in the air. After that, Hermes went home with the sword, where Medea's eyes were sparkling in excitement. She asked permission to touch it, but Hermes didn't let her. She insists for a quick touch or just a peek, but Hermes disagrees because the sword is fragile and could break at any moment. Medea made teary eyes. That's why Hermes took the sword and let her look, but just the outside. He swung the sword, but his jaw dropped when it suddenly cut into half. The scabbard was falling from its sheath. He assumed that it happened because they tossed him in the air earlier. It's a historic sword given by the king, so he better stash it deep where no one will find it. He repaired the sword and sealed it with a bit of magic. Hermes was wandering around their house. He was bored to realize he lived in the same old mansion, walking on the same old hallways and entering the same old door. He sat in the same old chair when Mimi's arrived. Although he is old, he is not the same at all. He notices that the old man is a bit off and holding something on his back, so he asked if he was okay. The old man said that they had an emergency, so he made a wild guess if it's about the toilet or another meteor fell. The old man stated that it's an even bigger emergency than what he mentioned. They confirmed that there was an abnormal outbreak of Akris. The old man clapped his hand to order a maid to bring a plate with tiny Akris on it. Hermes finds it gross, yet he didn't know what exactly those things were. The old man explained that those are currently spreading all over, multiplying at an abnormal rate. Reports from towns and villages, affected all, said the same thing. The sky disappeared. Hermes couldn't believe the scale of the outbreak that made the sky vanish, and this thing reproduces that much with this size. The old man continued that the most terrifying thing isn't just their numbers. They didn't eat humans, meat, nor vegetables, not even plants. But they absorb water, and that alone is enough for them to multiply. In other words, they fly around in search of water, drying up ponds and rivers. They even suck up underground moisture, desertifying the entire region as they go. Hermes thought that it was bad because the country could fall in just a few days. He doesn't know about Akris, but he gave order to Mimes to evacuate the people as far away as possible immediately. The old man immediately left to send evacuation orders across the territory. The reason for his order is that no one will see him no matter what he does. He went to the site and found how bad it was because there were a lot of Akris sucking the ground's moisture. He needed to do something. He immediately created a massive power and struck it towards those Akris, but he observed they are regenerating. Right after he destroys one, they multiply right away. He unleashed great power that occupied the area to the point that Hermes could be seen as a tiny one from afar. With this power, he could burn all the Akris down faster than they could multiply. Later on, the area was clear from Akris, so he bolted away to the next infected area. He went from one area to another again and again until he finished all those 28 areas. After that, he exhaustedly lay his body on the bed when the butler suddenly arrived. He immediately told him he didn't want to do anything else. The old man wants to report about the Akris issue. But Hermes already knew the outcome since he was the one who destroyed them. But he was wrong, because the butler told him that Akris evolved. Apparently the Akris were swallowed up one after another by a mysterious heat wave and mostly disappeared. But few of them survive, and those species are driven to the brink of extinction and evolved. The Akris was now a completely different creature after evolving. Their sizes were no different from humans. Hermes was too exhausted from last night after taking care of the 28 area, so he decided to end the battle with one shot. He lifted his sword and started the fight. After a while, all the Akris fell on the ground lifeless. That's why Hermes couldn't handle the exhaustion that he felt. The next day, after a series of intense battles, Hermes is the most exhausted he's even been in his life. His vitality meter is empty, while all his thoughts have ceased. Erica was worried about him. She wondered if she should summon every doctor in the kingdom. Then Hermes growls, so she asks him if he wants to get married. In such a condition, she really inserts those married things when the man couldn't get up in exhaustion. Even the thing between his legs will surely not be able to move. Anyway, Hermes made a sound again. She realized that the man must be hungry. She quickly went outside to prepare some food. After a while, she came back and brought something to perk him right up. She made a legendary dish that they say is so potent, it could make a dying man leap out of bed with a nosebleed. Yet she wasn't sure if she replicated it perfectly, but she poured all her heart into making it. She was trying to feed him, but Hermes couldn't even open his mouth. So she takes the food and uses her mouth to feed Hermes. She then thanked him for the food. Ow, what is this? He ate. She ate. They ate? Or was it just the wrong bubble text? Did she really thank him for the meal? Is this dried lip a meal? Anyway, Hermes mumbled that it was delicious. Well, I think so too. Before the FBI arrived, Erica was delighted to see that Hermes's hair color was already looking better. She was about to continue feeding him when Kaori suddenly arrived and crashed through the window. She immediately went to Hermes, who was still lying on the bed. She was worried, so she asked Erica what happened, or if he's dead. She also added that if he was dead, she can bring him back as long as it's under 3 seconds. It's the 3 seconds rule that her father taught her. Erica scolds her for being so loud. She also states that Hermes is not dead. He's just completely exhausted for some reason. Kaori calms down and realizes that she's right. His life force is just low. She was sad because Hermes is no fun when he's like that. Erica agreed that's why she was asking her to keep her voice down. But Erica was stunned when Kaori suddenly left and crashed into a different wall than the last time. She apologizes to Hermes for all the noises. She was about to continue feeding Hermes when Kaori came back again and crashed for the 3rd time. A different wall. Erica seems irritated, yet Kaori didn't mind her since it's typical for a demon king. She shows her what she brought, a whelp of crystal dragon. Its liver is the perfect cure for exhaustion. She ripped it out of the whelp and took out the liver. Erica finds it disgusting, so she asks the demon king if it is safe. When Kaori gives her a thumbs up, she has no other choice but to try. This time, Kaori has the liver in her mouth. The next day, 3 maids were gossiping about what happened yesterday, that Kaori, the Demon King, and Queen Erica were acting just like Hermes' personal maid, and it made the maid, made in China, feel proud serving Hermes. Our lazy guy, who seemed okay from the exhaustion the other night, heard them. Because of his popularity, whenever he went, people were trying to catch his attention to stop by and give things. He ended with so much stuff, and it feels wrong to just keep taking it. He decided to buy a souvenir for Sola on his way home. On his way, he suddenly felt a quaking atmosphere, then a raging mist on his back. He also felt a superheated steam that isn't the kind of fire that just burns you, it's the kind that melts you. His thought was debating whether to dodge or not, because no matter what he does, people will still praise him. Hence, it's not the time to debate his public image, so he stomped his foot on the ground to create a gust of wind. He was confused about what happened. He looked at every person to see what idiot set off fireworks in the middle of the town. His eyes landed into the girl, so he asked who she was. The girl introduces herself as Sophia Despina. The girl angrily called his name and asked if he had forgotten her. Hermes searched his thoughts for who she was, but her name was unfamiliar, so he asked if they met somewhere before. He also made a guess if she's maybe from some shop. The girl clenched her fists, claiming that she's been waiting the whole time. The girl was raging in fury and released a massive power. Hermes calculated that her power is 3 times stronger than before. He immediately retreated and went home. At the mansion, Sola greeted him when he arrived. Then she noticed that he's been scorched. Hermes looked at his side and was confused when it actually hit him. Sola laughed at him as he smelled like he used a pumice stone that perfectly toast bread with steam. Hermes made a serious look and asked his sister if she ever heard the name Sophia Despina. His sister agreed and asked if he knew about the story of how the first head led his 200 soldiers fighting in battles all across the land. Hermes agreed that he heard about it, so Sola continued that the title given to the 200 who remained loyal to the very end was Despina. In an old tongue, it means the ultimate vassal. Hermes didn't recognize the name, but they're essentially a branch of their family. Sola agrees and says that most of the original 200 soldiers adopted Despina as their own surname. Over the centuries, they united to form a single great house. Hermes, upon hearing the story, realized that they were connected after all and assumed that Sophia must have had some business with him. But still, that doesn't explain the fury that she showed earlier. They were still chatting about Sophia when the girl suddenly arrived at their house. Sola was frightened that made her to suddenly hug his brother. Hermes thought that she tracked him by his scent and assumed that maybe she's a beast person. Sophia orders him to prepare himself and quickly charge her power about 4 times stronger than the last. Hermes was worried because Sola was there, but he had no choice. He uses his magic, vanishes in an instant, and reappears on Sophia's back. He lightly smacked his back that made her fall to the ground unconscious. Hermes scratched his head since it was too close. He asked his sister if she's okay. He was bewildered when Sola seemed to know the girl. She said that of all the Despina, Sophia possessed the greatest magical power. In the end, Sola praises him for taking down Despina's prodigy effortlessly. He was irritated, yet he asked what to do with Sophia, who has such a cute sleeping face while drooling. Previously, the mansion was attacked by a mysterious girl and the mansion was pretty damaged. Hermes was thankful that Sophia was sleeping soundly. Sola teases him for being such a kind man. In response, Hermes told her to stop teasing because he's the kind of guy who panicked a little after knocking Sophia out with a hand chop. He asks Sola, since Sophia has the highest magical power, if they are seriously ranking people even within their own house. Sola responds that she heard Despina has 200 descendants. Their structure is to dispatch appropriate forces immediately when requested by the Kano family. That's why they rank them by combat strength to foster competition. That proves even more how the siblings are deeply connected to Despina. Sola also added that Sophia is currently ranked number 1 in Despina. Her magical power is unmatched and she's insanely knowledgeable. A once-in-a-decade prodigy when it comes to magic. Hermes stopped her as he was curious why the girl came after him. He couldn't remember anything. He also added that he was being attacked before they spoke in town. Sola was worried because Despina went as far as destroying the Lord's mansion. It's something that Hermes shouldn't just shrug off. She also added that maybe it's because the master's too pathetic. Hermes felt flattered for that reason, but his problem is Sophia's killing intent. He felt like it's something really personal and clingy. Sola was wondering about the clingy word, but before he could respond, Sophia woke up and was shocked to see Sola in front of her. She immediately jumped out of bed, and it seems she knew Sola. If Sola was there, it means Sophia was in the mansion. She immediately asked for forgiveness for losing control earlier. Sola smiled, telling her it was nothing, because more important was that she was all right. The two start to chat when Hermes interrupts them, saying hello to Sophia. The moment the girl landed her gaze on him, she quickly launched her fire at him. Hermes bolted out to escape, but Sophia told him just to stand there. Hermes was confused about going that far for him, but Sophia angrily asked, how dare he say that after what he had done? She froze when Sola released her menacing aura as she called her name. She knew she would be doomed if she didn't stop, so she apologized for her behavior. She was speechless and seemed hesitant to tell the truth when Sola asked her about the reason behind her actions in attacking Hermes. Sola smiles at her and says that she will lend her strength to her if that's okay with her. She walks towards her, claiming that the Despina and Kano family has been connected for centuries. Technically, they were master and servant, but essentially a family. She offered a hand and added that she was welcome to talk about anything and could think of her as her older cousin. Sophia was delighted, so she immediately whispered something in Sola's ear. The latter laughed and told her brother that there's no secret that can't be kept. Hermes was confused about the secret, which is why Sola asked him if he really didn't remember. She asked if he had never come for Sophia, not even once. Hermes was shocked after learning that he had proposed to Sophia. While having a chat, little did they know that 2 gossiping maid girls were on their roof. Mimes saw them and thought it was dangerous. Hermes was giving orders to Mimes that day. He wants to allocate a larger budget for some areas. Regarding the Fountain Plaza, there were several damaged spots, so they had to dispatch personnel to repairs as soon as possible. Mimes interrupted him and whispered, "If it's all right." Then he turned his eyes on Sophia, who was hiding on a bookshelf looking at Hermes. The latter told the butler not to worry about it. The butler also said that it's utterly outrageous for someone from the Despina family to enter during his duties without permission. He urged Hermes to stop her immediately or impose a penalty. Hermes seemed nervous and said that it may be true, though the situation is complicated. When the butler told him that he already heard the story, he suddenly stood up and blamed Sola that she might be the one who spread it. The butler laughed and said that if he were to speak of imposing penalties for something like that, he would have been sorely disappointed. He gave a thumbs up at Sophia and said that he will leave the rest to them. Then he leaves the room. Now Sophia and Hermes were alone in one room, but no one dared to speak. Both of them were surprised when Erica suddenly came along with Eleni and bolted towards Hermes. Sophia widened her eyes when Erica called him darling, and that she misses him. Eleni seemed worried about Sophia's feelings and gave her a pity look. Sophia heard and saw everything, how Erica clung to him. That's why she couldn't control her anger and launch her flame, calling Hermes a cheater and bolting out of the room. Erica was confused about who the girl was, so Hermes told that it was Sophia. Hermes was bewildered when Erica knew about Sophia, a promising girl from Despina family. Then she asks Hermes what's her business with him, because if Sophia is being too impudent, she will take care of her. Hermes quickly disagreed. He told her that apparently when they were kids, he said something like he'll make Sophia his bride someday. Sophia took it seriously, yet he completely forgot about it. Based on Sophia's reaction earlier, Erica clearly sees that she likes Hermes. Somehow that makes her feel a little jealous. She decided to do her best to get along with Sophia. After all, it's a tradition passed down from Lady Rika. She smiles and encourages Hermes to follow Sophia. Meanwhile, Sophia kept on firing out of anger, calling herself an idiot. In her mind, she worked and tried so hard to become a girl worthy of Hermes. When she heard that he became the head of the family and acknowledged by the king, she trained even harder in magic. She burst into tears because after all, he forgot everything. But to her shock, Hermes was already on her back, bowing before her and apologizing deeply. Yet she was too stubborn and angrily said that she didn't want him to apologize and continue to fire her power in the sky. When Hermes saw it, he clearly remembered everything. Sophia was just like this when they first met. Back then, he went to her and asked if she's all right for firing spells so recklessly. The young Sophia reasoned that she's just trying to calm herself down and warn him not to interfere. But Hermes didn't follow. Instead, he asked if something happened. There, she said that she lost to a kid 3 years younger than her in a match multiple times. They'll laugh at her again, calling her the weakest. Hermes disagrees because it doesn't look like it for him. He added that her magic quality and rapid fire are both impressive. More importantly, the way she calms herself and the mindset of not relying on others. That's the time he said that if he were to get married someday, he would want a strong girl like that. Sophia blushed. That's why she continues firing magic to calm herself and ask him to leave her alone. That was a way of thinking he never had. That's probably why Sophia became strong enough to reach the top rank. He remembered that what he said back then was truly from his heart. He put his hand on her shoulder and said to just go with the flow. He put some magic that flowed from his hand onto her shoulder. Hermes was happy that she understood right away. He also advises her that's the way to do it when firing rapid spells. If she improves her efficiency, she can boost both power and the number of shots. Sophia was speechless, so he encouraged her to give it a try. Sophia agrees. That's why Erica, who's watching her rapid firing, felt a little jealous. Later on, Hermes went to Orutia's shop. The girl was massaging his head when out of the blue asked him if he was getting married. She congratulates him, but Hermes denies it. Orutia didn't believe it because the rumors are all over. She was talking about Sophia that he's getting along with lately. Rumors say they didn't get along at first, but Hermes handled things sincerely and seriously, then he proposed. Hermes was frustrated because the last part was totally made up. In his mind, if he takes everything bit by bit, it might not be entirely untrue, and there might be parts he has to admit aren't entirely false. Orutia laughed at him and said that if it's true or not, if he gets married, he better tell them properly. Orutia need to know their favorite costumer's wife properly, and if they can hit along. Hermes was confused, so Orutia explained that they share information about their customers. In other words, aftercare. Get too obsessed with a courtesan and he'll be ruined. But if he stops coming, that's bad also. It's like a fancy restaurant giving him recipes so he can cook the same at home. She also added that if he doesn't do it properly, he'll get yelled at or dragged into a marital fight. Hermes was amazed at Orutia for thinking all of that stuff. Later on, Orutia invited him to have a drink and will pay for it. Hermes agreed, but didn't believe that she was willing to pay because he knew, in the end, it would be him. After that, Hermes was in the dark with a huge spider with its web. He was confused why he was there. It was because a few hours earlier, Orutia and him were drinking in her shop. They were having a talk about jealousy. In his mind, Sophia's jealousy at Erica was now calm. But if she turns that jealousy towards Orutia, he's in trouble. He better keep her happy. He asks Orutia what girls like that makes them happy. The girl suggests that tatoing is all the rage. It's shockingly surprising that Hermes didn't know what Tataroka is. Orutia explains that it's a super rare monster spider egg. It's smooth and chewy and it sprinkles when he puts it in a drink. Drinking it is called tatoing. It's something you enjoy with someone special. And that's the reason he's in front of that monster spider, because he decided to catch it right away. Meanwhile, Sophia was calmly reading a book inside the mansion when an explosion suddenly emerged. Then, behind the smoke, Hermes came out. He yelled at her to take it and gave her a pouch. She opened the pouch and saw that it's a Tataroka. She was confused, yet she accepted and thanked Hermes. But it looks like Sophia gets it again the wrong way when she assumes that Hermes loves her. She even says, "I love you" to Hermes. The latter didn't know what to say. In his mind, there's nothing wrong with being told "I love you." As expected of Orutia's advice, he will regret his action the next morning. The next day, inside the study room, Mimes and Hermes were seriously talking about delinquent taxes for a village called Shiromero. According to the butler, recently they've started giving them the runaround with their payments. Hence, there's no specific reason. The butler finds the issue not complex, so he asks the Lord to move into the next report. But for Hermes, it's important, so he asks the butler to leave that issue to him. Since it might be his chance, a proof needs to brand him as incompetent, a lord who can't even handle a simple tax collection. So he went out and wandered around thinking how he would fail and be branded as incompetent. Then he heard something. A man was furious, yelling at the collector being incompetent. The man was shaking and burst into tears. He's Nasos, a low-ranking debt collector. Nasos reasoned that his opinion is that being gentle would work. He kept on inserting the word "das" in his sentence that made the man more furious and gave him a hard punch. The man said that actions are the only way to prove he was serious. He also added to stop making excuses, then leave Nasos. The latter cried again for being completely useless. That's the time Hermes appears and invites him to eat because he knows he can use him. So they went into a shop that serves food and ordered many. Nasos was shaking because he felt intimidated in front of Hermes, so he asks Hermes what he wants. Hermes admits that he had a favor to ask, but before he elaborated it, he introduced himself. They both exchange names and even shake hands. Nasos seems too late to notice that he is from the Kano family, and when he realized who was in front of him, he immediately stood up and asked if he was the lord of their domain. Hermes agreed and ordered him to sit since they can't talk while he was standing. Nasos followed, so he elaborated that there's a village called Shiromero. They're behind on their tax payment. Simply put, he needs Nasos to go and collect it for him. If he does, he was willing to give him the 10% cut. Nasos dropped his jaw since it was a huge amount. The offer was good, but he declined. As for him, he's not good. He's been screwed up his whole life. Just a while ago, his own brother washed his hands of him. That's why there's no way he can do it. Hermes interrupts and encourages him to do it since he saw his potential. But in his mind, the potential that he's been talking about is the potential to fail. Nasos was surprised that he believed in him. That's why Hermes continues and says that he believes in his strength and power. Yet, in his mind, it's the other way around. Nasos clenched his fist and remembered that his parents always told him he was worthless. But there, someone told him those words, so he decided to do it. He is willing to put his life on the line for Hermes. Then he bolted out. Hermes now was confused if his decision was right. If he accidentally flipped some kind of weird switch on him. 6 months have passed, and Nasos actually pulled it off. He faced his true self and forged his mind and body anew. Then he went to the village chief's house again and again. At first, the chief didn't pay, and reasoned that they can't pay what they don't have. Nasos remembers that he promised Hermes that he will put his life on the line, and he will until he gets the result. He won't budge a single inch from where he was standing until the chief pays. He took it seriously and went to the village for months every single day. The chief gave up and Nasos' stubbornness won. The chief will scrape together every last coin in that village and pay him. When the butler heard about Nasos, he was amazed, because Hermes not only collected the debt, but also cultivated such fine young talent. In the end, Hermes gets another praise from the butler for possessing the most vital quality of a ruler. However, Nasos burst into tears when Hermes said that he did well. He even showed his muscles. The butler and Hermes widened their eyes by the sight, so he told him that there's a more effective way to use it. He also added that instead of debt collection, he has business ventures to recommend. An instructor in the gym. Meanwhile, 5 girls gather on one table. They were Sola, Kaori, Rina, Medea, and Orutia. Rina seems confused by Orutia's presence, so the latter said that she heard she wanted to talk about Hermes. She also asks if it's okay for her since she's a married woman. Sola delightedly said that it was fine, and told everyone that she invited close relatives of Hermes and hadn't thought about a bride at all. She asked the Demon King and Rina if that's okay with them. Orutia barely knows how strong Hermes actually is, but it's fine for Sola. She assumes that everyone seems to have seen all the crazy stuff that Hermes has done. According to Kaori, Hermes doesn't want to go all out, but sometimes it accidentally leaked out. Orutia says that Hermes is a kind of scatterbrain too, while Medea bragged that her master is the strongest in the world because he defeated her grandpa with a single strike. Sola was surprised and asked if Medea meant the Sword Saint, the world's strongest swordsman. Medea agreed and added that her grandpa is incredibly strong, yet he was no match for Hermes. Sola understood and assumed that Hermes was the strongest in the world. But she was curious, so she asked the other what about when it comes to magic. Rina responds that magic power, unlike swords, is something no one can predict in various ways. For instance, she already confirmed when he conquered the Slime Lord's magical power. Orutia was bewildered, so Rina explained that if you use stairs, you won't break your leg, but if you won't use it, of course it could break your leg. Same with the magic. Even if you keep using weak spells endlessly, it's fine. But then you suddenly boost your magical power with a powerful spell. It inevitably puts a strain in the body, but the residual mana that lingers afterwards will always carry the trace of how much the body was worn down. In Hermes' case, there wasn't any trace at all. Sola made it clear that for Hermes, the Slime Lord level is no more taxing than going up and down flight stairs. Orutia interrupts and says that even if she's with Hermes, and they were in some massive crisis like a totally hopeless disaster, Hermes will still give off such a calm and floaty vibe. He hasn't even shown his full strength and has energy to spare. In response, Rina comments that she's definitely more reassuring than someone who's frantically fighting for their life every single time. Medea exclaimed that her master rarely even drew his sword. With just spirit and glare, their opponents will scatter the small fries. Orutia was wondering how far Hermes could still be okay. She made an example about a huge meteor suddenly coming crashing down. Orutia seems worried and asks the three if it's looking bad, except for Kaori, who seems not interested. Anyway, Sola smiles because it's not a problem. The others agree, so Rina made a meteor. That's why Hermes suddenly went to the area. But his jaw dropped when he saw the four girls, except for Kaori, of course. He appears gallantly in a crisis, solved it with a completely unfazed expression, and only panics about the fact that someone saw him do it, yet he still hasn't shown his true power. On the other hand, Queen Erica along with Eleni were riding on a carriage. Seems they were in a hurry trying to catch the Teaparty. On their way, they didn't pay attention to the menacing gaze at them. Meanwhile, Hermes was surprised not to see Erica in this gathering, because she is the type who always shows up if she says she'll come, and even shows up unannounced if she hasn't said anything, especially if it's related to Hermes. She always desperately makes time for it. Sola got an idea and suggested he pick her up. Since Erica took care of him the other day, it will be fair to return the favor at least a little. He agreed, planning to go buy her some sweet dorayaki. Meanwhile, Erica's guards were fighting the beast on the road, which is unusual. One of the beasts pounced at her, but a sudden impact had occurred. Hermes arrived, assuring them everything will be fine now. The two extras wondered if he was okay because he was totally getting bitten by the beasts. They were shocked when the queen addressed him, darling, and said, "I love you" to him. Eleni suggested he escape with Erica, but he disagreed, certain that these super strong guards would handle everything. A little while later, they surprisingly managed the beasts, but instead of praising them, Erica commended Hermes, which made the two knights sulk. Hermes urged her to praise the two because they worked really hard and reminded her to cherish those close to her. When she agreed, he noticed that the guards were unconscious, even Eleni and Erica. They fell asleep because of the gas, and it seems it doesn't work on him. The person behind all these was Rassel's Mir, the heir to the Duke of the Karamba Kingdom. Lady Erica is still young and currently in the throes of passion, so no matter what Mir says now, she won't listen. If he eliminates her, she should realize that he is the one who is worthy of her. He injected something into the beasts, but Hermes warned him not to think those mere beasts could defeat him. Mir thinks he was just acting tough, believing that in the last fight he would have died instantly if it weren't for those meat shields. Calling the loyal knights the meat shield made him serious, and he easily defeated the beasts. He informs the ugly noble that he hasn't even gone all out yet. Mir shouted at him to show his true power before injecting something in his own neck. Now that he has become uglier, he rushes in with confidence, but Hermes dodges all his attacks with ease. Realizing his power wasn't enough, Mir injected a booster serum at 120% concentration into himself, which made his ugliness reach a new level. His hand became expandable like tentacles, attacking Hermes non-stop, but our boy easily stopped it and exploded it. With a punch, Mir's ugliness reached its peak, then fell into deep sleep. Erica thanked her darling and informed him that she was awake from the beginning. Actually, her dress is custom made to protect both her life and her chastity. If Hermes decided to touch her, it would auto-remove itself. Seeing him speechless, she wondered if he preferred undressing girls himself. Hermes didn't comment but asked what they would do to this moron. Erica knew Mir had those kinds of tendencies for a while. He is a baseless narcissist who thinks everyone should fall for him, and he really believes that if they don't, it's everyone else's fault, not his. She approached him and then stabbed him in his chest. Since he tried to harm the queen, that means the death penalty. Mir tried to use her to harm Hermes, and even used forbidden drugs, which means he is beyond saving. So she added one more crime to his sentence. Normally, nobles are granted an honorable suicide instead of public execution, but Mir gets no such honor. She then called him darling again, and requested that he repeat what he said earlier, that he hasn't gone all out yet. Boys love saying that, but almost none of them ever actually go all out afterward. When he refuses, she approaches Eleni's unconscious body and picks up a book. It was her darling diary. She will write those words before she forgets them. She has been writing down everything she knows about him so far, but she assured him no one will see it as long as she is alive. Once she dies, it becomes an official archive that should be passed down to future generations. Now the word he said, "I haven't gone all out yet," will live on in history. Back at the Kano estate, after finishing some documents, Mimas leaves the rest to Hermes. He begged the old man to stay a little longer, but the old geezer swiftly went out the door. He notices that something's off with Sophia lately, but realizes it's better than before. As he asked if something had happened, Kaori burst in, kicking him in the process. Sophia ordered her to get away from Hermes, calling her a brat and challenging her outside. Sophia made the first move by launching ultimate raging mist towards her. Hermes was impressed, realizing that her strength and power had evolved, but since Kaori was her opponent, she couldn't inflict any damage. Since her mother told her not to lay a finger on weak humans, Kaori shows her power by cutting a huge boulder with a swing of her hand. Witnessing that shocked Sophia to the core. Hermes warned her, but Kaori clarified she didn't even touch her. More importantly, what is this little girl's deal? When Hermes informed her that she was Sophia Despina from the Kano family, Kaori was certain she was her niece. Despina used to be one of her father's slave soldiers, and since he had a child with one of the women, that means Sophia was her niece. Sophia was shocked after hearing that Kaori was a demon king. Now that the talking is over, Kaori invited her nephew to have some fun together. If possible, somewhere without people around would be better. Thinking that they meant something, Sophia quickly ran, calling them perverts. She misunderstood what Kaori said. What she just means is that if there are people around, they get caught up in their play. She lifted a huge boulder and announced that today's game is Giant Rock Catchball Arc. Meanwhile, Sophia was sitting alone near a lake, throwing stones on the water. When Hermes arrived, she told him to go play something fun with the Demon King. Hermes responded that Kaori was exhausting and made it clear that he didn't mean it in a dirty way. Kaori is a super being called the Demon King, who acts just like a child in many ways. As a result, he ended up battling with her to the point of collapse. In that sense, it's more peaceful with Sophia. Sophia was confused but still agreed to stay with him a little longer. Meanwhile, Kaori threw the massive rock towards them, but Hermes easily destroyed it without moving. Sophia was stunned to witness that and thinks he was so amazing to instinctively deal with a flying giant rock without moving. On the other hand, Kaori was laughing, already expecting that action from her nephew. After a while, the lazy boy was relaxing, looking at the photo when Sola arrived. He showed her a photo, and the moment she saw it was Mimis, she quickly threw it away. He then showed another photo, but this time it was their maid changing clothes. Sola scolded him for taking photos of their maid, and reminded him that posting was absolutely forbidden. Hermes clarified that it wasn't him, informing her that the photo arrived for him this morning. Later on, he went to Orutia and learned that their store had also been terrible recently. There have been many kids who have been victims of voyeurism. However, no one sees the culprit. She handed him the photos and asked for his help. Hermes agreed, and after leaving the tavern, he wondered how he should approach this matter. When he arrived home, he noticed commotion in front of the gate, and asked what was wrong. The woman who looked embarrassed didn't answer. Seeing their tomato face while holding a photo, he excuses himself and picks up some photos above a table. To his shock, the person inside the photo was him. He became more embarrassed when the women praised his build and were itching to taste him. He went inside his office, declaring he would catch the culprit no matter what. He used his power to scan the surroundings, and when he detected a person, he was surprised to see that it was his sister in her undies, so he quickly moved back. After 20 minutes, he still didn't manage to capture the culprit. The next day, Sola went to his office only to find the window was broken. At the same time, at Binsu, the same table was in the corner, but people were confused because they did not see any photos. Meanwhile, Hermes was hiding as he held his sister's photo, and mumbled that whoever was behind this incident, he couldn't sense any presence at all. Back at the mansion, Sola was in maximum security while changing clothes. Behind a photo, a man was chuckling before revealing himself. He moved, passing through the maids before stopping in front of Sola. He called Sola an old hag before snapping photos of her to share them for free. In this way, he will become a god once more. Suddenly, a huge arm catches him, pulling him up to the sky. Hermes didn't expect the culprit to be a ghost who could use magic. The ghost was shocked that this boy could see him and asked for his identity. Hermes didn't give his name, stating that a peeper doesn't deserve to know his name. He tightened his grip, causing the ghost's body to crumble. The ghost shouted at him that there are people out there waiting for him, a god. He wasn't some peeping creep, and was just doing what only he can do for everyone, even the demon queen. Hermes had had enough of his mumbling, so he crushed him to dust. He then informed his sister about that ghost, who can use magic, and assured her it wouldn't come back anymore. But if a new one shows up, they will spot it right away. Sola thanked him before revealing that Princess Rina and Queen Erica were also victims, but they didn't announce it. She will report everything honestly to them, so he must expect their thanks later. When a photo slips from him, Sola picks it up and throws it in the air. Hermes quickly flew outside to find it, worried that someone would see that photo. Kaori arrived with a kick, but he easily dodged it. As a result, the earth received that kick, creating a massive crack. She invited him to play but suddenly noticed something in the air. She catches it, and upon seeing that it was her wearing nothing, she was glad to learn that he was a boy after all. Just like her father said, flat chests are a status symbol. She wants his desires to run wild and take them out on her. His aunt, Hermes, immediately refused and informed her of what had happened. He felt down because he noticed it late, even if it was just a ghost. When Kaori asks if he wants to train, he recalls his master and thinks that all he got from that training was trauma. A person behind him suddenly uses the same technique he had, grabbing his head. He was surprised not to notice the attack and look behind, only to find that it was his master. Hikari, the magic sword, greeted him, saying that it's been a long time. When she jumped down, Kaori hugged her, calling her a big sis. Seeing how happy his great-great-great-aunt was, he couldn't believe she could become this sweet without a battle involved. They went back to the mansion, but Kaori was still clinging to her. Hermes addressed her as master, so Hikari scolded him, reminding him he was supposed to call her big sis. When he was young, his master instructed him to defeat those monsters while his hand was tied up and just call her big sis. After a while, he should take down the group of orcs with his hands and legs tied up, and he should just call her big sis. For his graduation training, he must defeat the dragon using only the sword made from tofu, and he also just needs to call her big sis. Seeing that he was trembling, Kaori asked what the problem was. Hikari thinks he was remembering the past and informs Kaori that she trained him when he was little. By the way, Kaori always called him nephew, so she wondered what was with that. Kaori revealed that Hermes was her father's great-great-great-grandson, meaning he was her great-great-great-nephew. Hikari chuckled, saying that if that was true then she was his aunt too. Come to think of it, she never told him that her name is Hikari Yuki. Since she shares the same father as Kaori, that makes her his great-great-great-aunt. Kaori revealed that Hikari is a magic sword. Her father got her pregnant with a magic sword, and that's how Hikari was born. With that said, Hermes remembers the insanely heavy sword, heavier than a mansion. He kept swinging the sword, or rather, his master Hikari, during training. As a result, he ended up getting way stronger without realizing it. Realizing he was about to recall some seriously awful memories, he stopped narrating. More importantly, why did Hikari show up after 10 years? What has she been doing all this time? Well, there is no real reason. She just thought she would drop by after a while, and he seemed a little troubled. Kaori wondered what kind of lessons she taught him. It is the never give it your all. Human bodies are fragile, so to keep going longer, it's best to solve things at about 30%. If you're always at 30%, you'll have spare energy when it really counts. Just like her teaching, he's kept it consistent. Well, even if he was talented in strength, he clearly had no talent for hiding it. Putting that aside, he barely made it work this time with 50%. But who knows what will happen next time. The two decided to make that 50% longer by training again and getting stronger, so he can output that 50% effort with just 30% power. He tried to flee, but Kaori quickly caught him. With that, the training started. After a few days, he was lazing around again outside the mansion. Sola suggested that he become serious, believing that he was so incredible, even compared to the Demon King. She wanted the world to see how amazing he was, but Hermes didn't want to get serious to keep the world in peace. Suddenly, a terrified ghost passed by, mumbling that he was just a regular ghost. Meanwhile, Hikari felt great after the training session. Since Hermes managed to control his power again, she thinks it's time to power up. She stops in front of a dungeon, muttering her mom's name. Hermes was having the best time of his life when Sophia approached him. After learning he was done with his job, she asked if anyone else was coming over today. Hermes hasn't heard anything, which made her ponder what they should do today. Hermes wondered if she was about to ask him for a date. Since he had nothing else to do today, and the weather is perfect for going out, he invited her to go on a picnic. Seeing her happy face made him realize it wasn't so bad at all. But after a while, he questioned why they ended up in this place. Well, because Sophia has seen this in literature. It's the trial cave. Hermes replied that he didn't recall anything like that. The truth is, he was lying. He definitely remembers this entrance. When he first became the head of the family, they told him to retrieve a coin. It was the rite of first battle cave. Inside the cave, there are 7 coins. Each one is marked with a number of stars, from 1 star to 7 stars. The higher the number of stars, the easier it is to obtain. The 1 star is the most difficult. A strange feature of the cave is that the coins closer to the entrance require more magic power to lift. It's designed so that the farther in you go, the easier it gets. He didn't know how the system worked, so he just picked up the 1-star coin closest to the entrance and casually brought it back with him. Afraid his true power would be exposed, he somehow managed to trick everyone and make it seem like he had only taken the 7-star coin. Sophia was aware that he brought back the 7-star during his inauguration, but she still believes that if it were him, he could easily get the 1-star coin. Thus she suggested they go inside to prove how amazing he is. Inside, he casually destroyed the things on their path, until they found a coin with the first head of the Kano family engraved on it. Apparently, the cave and its mechanics were created by the first head. Sophia tried to pick up the coin, but something happened to her, so she quickly threw it. It seems the coin absorbs magic power. It's set up so that if you don't have enough magic power, you can't hold the coin. Honestly, Hermes didn't want her to see this part. Still, he picked up the coin and will just think of a way to make her keep quiet later. The coin is behaving differently than it did last time, so he thinks something was off. When he placed it on the altar, the color changed, and he realized this wasn't like the one he'd taken before either. Sophia suggested going deeper to find out, and reminded him that she had read about this trial cave in a document. She just remembered that there was more written in it. In the hometown of their ancestors, there was said to be an item that could grant any wish if you gathered them all. It can even bring a dead person back to life. Hermes clarified that even if they collect all the coins, nothing will happen. He then realized that a man claimed such an item existed, and the woman who knew him, Kano's first head, engraved herself into the coins and created a setup where someone would collect all 7. If it were their ancestors, he wouldn't put it past them to do that just for fun. A wish granting sure is tempting, and he absolutely has a wish he wants granted, to live a life of complete anonymity and be lazy without consequence. After a while, they finally find the final coin. It's glowing more than any of the others. Even though they completed the 7 Dragon Balls, the 7 coins, nothing happened. As he considers just putting them back, the coins suddenly emit a beam of light, revealing a woman who looks like Hikari. The woman introduced herself as Ellie. No, Fairy. Scratch that. She is the dragon goddess. After learning that the wish granting was just nonsense, Hermes felt dumb for getting his hopes up. Well, this is the hidden trial, and it wasn't unlocked the first time. Only those with higher abilities can qualify for this one. Thanks to that intense training from Hikari, Hermes' stat cap got pushed even higher. This hidden trial requires you to meet a combined standard, displayed power and latent capacity. Before he didn't have enough latent capacity, so it was locked. But now that he has grown, the trial has finally opened up, or so it seems. His ancestor, the first generation, once unleashed 120% of her strength in a battle against a fearsome enemy, but she couldn't maintain it for long. She was on equal footing only for a moment, but lost in a drawn-out fight. Learning from that, she spent the rest of her life training to always operate at 30% output to hone herself with constant control. This place was created to test whether someone with the same capabilities as her had appeared again. Since he has come this far, Ellie questioned if he wishes for the power to rule the world. Hermes immediately refuses, so she asks if he wants to rule half of the world. He also declined, which surprised her, as she hadn't expected him to turn down both offers. Since he was humble and honest, she gave him both. Hermes tried to turn down the offer, but she had already cast something on him. He is now carrying the power to claim 15 worlds. He tried to argue, but the dragon goddess had already said her goodbye. Sophia asked what happened, so he told her he felt his power just skyrocket again. Sophia was glad to hear that, certain that he is even stronger now. Hermes' purpose of coming here was to quietly slack off for life and fulfill that wish. But somehow, through a ridiculous loophole, he may have gotten even stronger instead, which is not what he wanted. On top of that, it is not just any strength. He now holds the power to conquer 15 worlds. True to her word, the coins turned to stone, and no matter what he did after that, it wouldn't respond. At the mansion, Sola was worried that her brother-father might be sick, but he whispered that it wasn't like that. The reason he was lying here on the bed like this, not even lifting his head, just staring blankly, was that if he jerked his head carelessly, that shockwave alone could easily blast the mansion to bits. There was that incident before when everyone's abilities doubled, but back then, even though his power spiked, it was still his, so his body adjusted instantly, and he could control it. However, this time, it's different, because it's not his power. That's why it's so hard to rein in. So he thought it'd be best to hole up in the mansion and just focus on doing nothing, and he merely tried to flop onto the bed. As you can see, the wall was already broken underneath his bed. He can't tell his sister about this because if he were to say that his power has grown stronger, she'd be so thrilled to broadcast it to everyone. And if he tried to hide it, he just knew the situation would get worse. Or rather, it would definitely get worse. Luckily, Sophia arrived. Sola looked at her before staring back at her brother-father. Since her brother was sick, lying in bed, and now that Sophia had arrived, she realized something green and left the two. Hermes tried to tell her not to lock the door, but she didn't listen. With that not-so-light shout, the window almost got broken. It seems he still can't control the power. If he sneezes or something, he probably blasts this entire mansion. To make sure that doesn't happen, Sophia went to the library afterward and did a lot of research. About the girl they met yesterday, she wondered whether her true identity might be recorded in an old book. She showed him a book with the sword and a girl with long hair, nearly reaching the backs of her knees. That sweet enchanting expression. Though the details vary, it's a dead ringer. Yet he knew this wasn't the girl from yesterday. It's Hikari. Actually, Sophia learned that this girl seems to be quite well known. She's also deeply connected to the very first head of the Kano family. And according to this book, the girl's name is Hikari Yuki. She's apparently a non-human being. It's a name they're not used to, but it's only natural that even her name would be fundamentally different from theirs. Recalling that the girl yesterday almost revealed her identity, Sophia realizes that it was written in the book. She is Alabore, the name of the demon sword that Hikari Yuki has borne all this time. Come to think of it, since Hikari herself is a demon sword, Hermes has come to accept that a demon sword can take human form. From everything they've learned so far, there's no doubt it's Alabore. Well, first of all, a demon sword lugging around another demon sword is pretty bizarre. That alone's a strange tale, but calling it a demon sword somehow just fits. The power that girl got is demonic energy. If you're talking light or dark, it's definitely dark power, meaning it's power born of a demon sword. Hermes thanked her for looking into a lot of things, which made her blush, stating that it was nothing, totally normal. This kind of thing is a piece of cake for her. She bid him goodbye, excited to dig even deeper just for him. Left alone, Hermes plans to just quietly sleep since he can't really do anything right now. At the same time, Kaori entered the room and kicked him. With that kick, almost half of the mansion was destroyed. Kaori was thrilled, wondering if this was the result of his special training with Hikari the other day. While she instructed him to show her more, Sola warned him not to overdo it. After inheriting the uncontrollable power of the cursed sword Alabore, whether he wanted it or not, he had no choice but to deal with it. so he decided to go all out against Kaori, in a place where they could fight with zero restraints. Kaori touches the ground, summoning some beasts as a warm-up. Hermes easily dealt with them one by one, and when no one was left, he questioned if that's all she had. Kaori cast a magic circle, summoning a huge, gigantic monster that quickly attacked him, throwing him a very long distance, destroying everything in its path. He became worried because the rocks are too brittle, and he can't stop. Upon realizing that timing it right was the solution, he managed to stop his body from going further. He clicked his tongue, comprehending that if he went any further, things would get really messy. Alright, he needs just enough power to release some of this pressure without blowing the place up. Using the right amount of power, he fired it, leaving Kaori and the gigantic monster stunned. A few days later, Sola asked whether he had heard that the Preogia Plains were now officially called the Preogia Canyon. Hermes looks to the side before asking if a meteor hit or something. According to Kaori, the magical residue from that blast was identical to Alabores, meaning no one can trace it back to him, as long as Kaori keeps her mouth shut. More importantly, now that he has fully purged that energy once, he can actually control it. He can live normally again, and that alone makes it all worth it. A maid approached him, informing him that Prince Sho had arrived. As he instructed the maid to just take the prince to the parlor, Sho, the third prince of the kingdom of Agana, told him not to be so uptight. Hermes respectfully bowed his head, apologizing for being late to welcome him. Sholo assured him it was fine, since it was he who had come here so suddenly. This guy is an unusually friendly man for royalty and Rina's brother. Also, Hermes had met him many times before, but there is no way he would come here without a reason. Sholo inquired if he knew about Zichifos, not the magician Zichifos he imagined. Zichifos is actually about the object that gave rise to the medal of the same name, the Holy Sword of National Protection Zichifos. About 400 years ago, it was a sword taught to the first head of Kano, the sword that Selina Agana possessed. The Zichifos medal took its name from that. Incidentally, Zichifos is also called one of the three great swords of history. The Holy Sword Zichifos, the light sword Runas held by the first head of Kano, and finally, the cursed sword Alabore. He heard that the Demon King was rampaging in the Preogia Plains and was certain that Hermes was the one who fought her. He directly asked the Demon King and found out that she only plays with Hermes, her nephew. It was her mother's order after all. So according to their investigation team at the scene, there remained traces of the Demon King and Alabore's power. Still, he was glad with the result of their investigation. If this had been traces of power never seen before, he thought it might be a new threat to humanity, but knowing it was Hermes, he was relieved. Apparently, only 2 people in history have ever been able to control Alabore's power, and he was amazed that Hermes was one of those. He asks how he did it, but Hermes refuses to answer. There's no way he can let his evaluation by the royal family go up any higher. Somehow, he has to fool Prince Shu and send him back. The fact about the new power has already been exposed. He must avoid further pursuit and keep Shu from speaking of it. As they played chess, he stated it was related to the first head of Kano, so he couldn't tell him anything because it was classified. If it's a family secret, even a prince won't be able to pursue it any further. That cave's trial might one day return again after his death. The ritual indeed passed down to each head should not be spoken of to others. The prince observes his face before believing that it was indeed their family secret. Even so, he likes to think he has a decent eye for people, and he can tell Hermes wasn't lying. However, he also gets the sense that's not the whole story. Knowing Hermes will not say anything, no matter how much he presses, he decided not to ask further, but instead he wants him to show a little bit of that power, strong enough to alter the land itself. Hermes reluctantly agreed, but with the condition that he must promise to keep it a secret. Prince Shug agreed, promising to take what he sees to the grave, in honor of the royal family. Hermes raises his hand, pointing it towards the sky, thinking that if it's a cloud that he blows away, there should be no evidence left behind. A few days later, Sola and Mimas excitedly inform him about a royal decree from the king. The time has come to fulfill the ancient covenant made by Selene Agena and Nana Kano. Hermes Kano shall be made a quasi-royal, and all status and rights shall be granted equivalent to those of royalty. It's an old promise with the Kano family. Sola questioned whether he remembered that the first head was Her Majesty the Queen's swordmaster at the time, and that's why the Kano family has carried on as barons for generations. Not only that, if the head of the Kano family should ever obtain the true legacy left by the first head, that head would be treated as equivalent to a royal for one generation. That was the promise. They don't really know what the meaning of true legacy is, but it is described as something incredible, tied to the first head. Recalling his encounter with the prince, he remembered that Sho promised him that he would take what he saw to the grave. However, the prince didn't promise that he would also take what he heard to the grave. Meanwhile, Orutia begs him to grant her this once-in-a-lifetime request, but seeing him just enjoying himself, she wondered what was with him all of a sudden. Well, there's been a huge commotion at the manor right now. Orutia knew what he was talking about. It's because he has become royalty. Since he became quasi-royalty, many people have been sending him presents. All the presents are loaded onto ox carts or horse-drawn wagons and delivered. Because receiving and checking them takes so much time, they can't all be stored inside the manor, so they've had them line up around the manor instead. And that line hasn't stopped for an entire day. That being said, there's also this sort of service now. Just from adding a new title, some people suddenly change their attitude and start fawning over him. But when he talks with Orutia, it's the same as always. It really calms him to be with her. So he questioned what her once-in-a-lifetime request was. However, she forgot it. So he massaged her head to jog her memory. Her request was about a new sake that had arrived. Hermes instructed her to open it and not to worry about money. Orutia informs him that the price is the same as always, but there's a little problem with it. This sake is extremely difficult to drink properly. In the first place, the process of making this sake involves letting it age for 20 years, distilling it once, then adding a new base spirit and aging it another 20 years. To put it simply, it's a mixture of 2 different vintages of sake, meaning you have to drink it in a way that suits both types of sake. Depending on how you chill this sake, the taste changes. That's why the usual way of drinking it is to keep half unchilled and the other half chilled. Hermes stares at the glass of sake before replying that he understands. He used some magic towards it, and when it was done, he explained that it was ice of air. He mixed that into each type of sake. He simultaneously uses water magic to lower the temperature and wind magic to create an air vortex. When he forms an air vortex, the moist air and dry air naturally separate. After that, if he chills it inside the dry air, ice of air forms. That way nothing gets diluted, and then they could finally drink it while it's still tasty. They cheered their drinks and had a little conversation. The sake was really good, which made her ask if making ice out of air is difficult. Hermes excitedly responded that it was so easy. Once she understands a little trick, it's pretty easy to manage. The other day, outside the mansion, the line of people who were liquor enthusiasts from all over was getting longer and longer because they wanted to learn his tricks. He tried to blame Orutia, but realized that it was his fault, so he decided to cut back on drinking for a while. Scene change. And he was relaxing in a pool while Queen Erica and Eleni were playing. When water splashes on him by accident, he asks why they are playing in a pool. The queen feels that if she doesn't do something summary with him, it won't feel right. Besides, starting tomorrow, she won't be able to come for a while. There's a troublesome festival ritual, so for about 2 weeks she won't be able to move at all. When Hermes told her to take care, she immediately hugged him, thinking she was worried for her. Solar arrived to ask for his time, but seeing how close they were, she realized she must have been intruding. He tried to deny it, but when the queen hugged him tightly, she decided to walk away. He noticed her magic felt strange, so he told Erica he would go take a look. When he entered the mansion, Sola was in pain, lying on the floor. The doctor informed him that she is showing symptoms of mana stone. It's the magical power that constantly flows through the body. When it gets blocked like a stone, that's why they call it a stone. For some reason or other, stagnation forms, and then it hardens. Her condition wasn't life-threatening, but there's no real treatment for it. Seeing his sister in pain, he questioned if she was really fine. The doctor affirmed it, informing him that among illnesses, the pain is in the upper ranks, but it is absolutely never fatal. In terms of mortality, it's 0%. In 3 days the symptoms will completely disappear. For Hermes, that was too long, so he asked how to ease the pain. Since it is a mana stone, if Hermes could crush the hardened stagnation inside the body, the symptoms would subside immediately. But it's impossible to grasp the flow of magic inside someone else's body. Hermes understands the doctor's explanation, and quickly uses magic to analyze her body. Upon seeing where the stagnation is, he uses his consciousness to enter her body and kick the stone. After a while, Sola was already having a good time in a pool, and she felt so light. On the other hand, the cute little doctor couldn't believe he sensed the mana stone from the outside and then crushed it. That's unheard of. He was certain this would be the hot topic at the medical magic conference. This time, Hermes didn't care. What matters now is that he is glad Sola is healthy again. While he was busy checking a pile of documents, Medea entered his office excitedly reporting about the emergency crisis. She even tried to enter, but it was absolutely impossible to get inside. According to the investigators, there's supposedly treasure hidden inside. However, she was wondering why they even knew that, when no one got in, and she thought maybe it was the aura of the treasure or something like that. Hermes flicked her head and suggested taking a breath in and out. With his instruction, she inhales and exhales. After a deep inhale, she seems to have almost lost oxygen and then calls her master. Now that she was calmer, he informed her that what she had done was also a principle of swordsmanship, a technique that deliberately defies the opponent's expectation. Back to the topic, she explained that a new ruin has been discovered in a place called Edessa. Ruins are occasionally sites dating back hundreds or even thousands of years that are unearthed. Often when these ruins are investigated, they reveal things that no longer exist today. Not long ago, discoveries like Dorayaki and Bloomer's inventions from ancient times sparked a bit of a cultural craze. The only unusual thing about the ruin Medea mentioned was that no one could get inside at all. It seems there's some kind of barrier over the entrance. No one's been able to breach it, and even now, many are struggling. And what's more, her grandpa said, it carries the scent of a woman's body, and now he's trying to go to the ruin. Realizing the ruin might be a decent way to pass the time, Hermes rode the carriage the next day with Orutia. He made it clear that he should spend money on others once in a while. But Orutia knew there was a real reason he had invited her. She has known him for many years, and there's no way he would suggest an outing without some hidden motive. Hermes replies that there is a little, and advises her to act like she always did. Orutia wanted to ask a lifetime favor, so he spun her around, reminding her that it wasn't her actual act. Outside, Mimas informs them they have arrived in Edessa, the village where the ruin was discovered. Chapters end at 35. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you loved this manga. Have a good day.